Yeah, and great.
Good. Well, Marissa, we had a really good session with this group last time. They're very engaged and had lots of good ideas about risks on the road.
Yeah, Loretta passed on the message.
Yeah, lots of feedback. Gave out lots of prizes, so I'll continue that. We talked about this little case study, which I sort of went quickly through. And I will start here again, just recapping there the fact that, sometimes improvements to our network can come with road safety challenges. And this one was the one where they were sealing or formalizing the other bit of the road, and it really accentuated the see-through effect of this crossroad that they'd formed, and we saw this increase in death and serious injury to our community as a result of these works, which were seen as improvements. So we don't want to limit road safety auditing just to projects we think are risky or the like. We want to be ensuring that it's common practice. And we're lucky that in Australia, at least, it is very common practice for any project over certain values will get a road safety audit undertaken, and over higher values will get many road safety audits undertaken throughout the development, design, and construction of the public infrastructure. And that's, very slightly around the world, but it's becoming more and more commonplace and more common practice that this will happen. So that was one example. And then we finished off by talking about the fact that we can do those road safety audits at different stages of a project. So in that, those planning stages with what we'd call a feasibility audit or preliminary design audit or the detailed design audit. Then we're into construction, so actually building, and you can do that work site traffic management audit or the construction site audit, pre-opening, post-opening, or existing roads thematic audit. And I took you through these sort of explanations of each of those, with the feasibility being the big picture planning type audit, where you don't often get much detail at all, but you're thinking about movement of people and around here and different road users and way this might change travel patterns and things that might, just create a bit of risk there. Preliminary concepts, a bit more detail, and starting to get into thinking about these things. And the detailed design, obviously, you're given a lot of dense information. Detailed designs, in one sense, are very hard to do the road safety audit on, because you've got to interpret all this technical information and work it out. But in another sense, are kind of easier, because you do have the answers to a lot of the questions you might have at some of these earlier stages. If you're back here, you'll be asking lots of questions in your mind about lane widths and about different drainage setups or lighting, and they just wouldn't have answered these. They wouldn't have got to that detail of thinking. So those could all be issues, but you wouldn't know. When you're in detailed design, you get all that information, but you really have to spend the time pouring through the details of these designs and interpreting what they're doing and making decisions accordingly. This one I didn't have time to do last time. We was just talking about drivable culvert end walls, and the fact that we certainly know we don't want drivable end walls like the top there in the roadside, because vehicles leave the road, they strike these, and we see some pretty horrific incidents. So we want to put these drivable culvert end walls so vehicles, if they leave the road, they navigate across that. But the little kicker is that there's actually two types of drivable culvert end walls. You've got one for the perpendicular and one for the parallel culvert. And so you can see the difference there. And they've got these ones correct, but you have that one for when your culvert's going across the road, and this one running parallel. But one of the really common things we see in detailed design is the choice of the wrong culvert in the design. And So the installers aren't really thinking. They just go and buy type 1 or type 2 as per the plan, and then they install it. But as the road safety audits are detailed design, these are the kind of very specific things that you can pick up. Construction stage audits, as I mentioned, really for the big picture, the big construction sites. If you're just doing a small bit of work on a local road or something and it's getting traffic management, I think it is just overkill to do a road safety audit, right? Unless there's some very, risky thing that you haven't, but really the surveillance officers and anybody out there managing the site should be able to pick up those things. But if you're doing big works on major roads and freeways and big, long-ish term changes, we really should have that full-blown road safety audit process through this. Pre-opening, you're really checking a whole lot of things that have been installed and making sure that they're not going to present any issues, that they're installed correctly, but also that there's nothing that's emerged that was unexpected. And we saw this little one, which you picked up quite well there, the stencil the wrong way around. And I talked about existing conditions audits to finish it off. So that brings us to, where we're going to go for this session. Remember to look out for Wally the Wombat. Hopefully you did your quiz and you were close with your Wally count at least from last session. Remember, you need to get 80% on those quizzes or more. And we talked about these, stages of a project we can do the audit. So it might be you're asked to do a detailed design road safety audit or an existing conditions road safety audit, right? But it doesn't matter what stage it is that you're doing that audit, you follow these same steps within that audit. And that's what I'm going to take you through at the start of this session. And then we're going to go into looking at one road user group. We're going to look at pedestrians. So part of the requirements of an Austroads road safety audit course is that we cover off each road user and just present a few ideas on some of the considerations an auditor needs to take for those particular road users. We can't cover off everything, but we will cover off a few things. Okay, there are 10 steps within a road safety audit. I'm going to take you through those 10. And I'm going to point you at where you can get some further information on these steps if you do want to dig into them further. Okay, so road safety audit is a fairly straightforward process. And remember, this course is about the process of road safety auditing. Yes, we like to delve into some technical details and some specifics of things that present risk on the road network, but our primary purpose of this course is to teach you the process of road safety auditing. I'll take you through these 10 steps. Audits do take time. Detailed design ones can take quite a bit of time. Existing conditions audits and the like, it can be a bit quicker, but you're still talking about, days. Well, a good few hours out on site, and then a lot of time sort of writing it up and making sure you've written it up well. They really do add value to projects. So I'll show you, actually last session, I talked to you about the evaluations of different audits from around the world and the benefit cost ratios, pretty astronomical, some of them. And we've got to make them an integral part of the design process. Now, there's a roundabout sign here. Now, we drive on the left in Australia. Anybody see any issues with that? I'll give a prize out. Is that good? That's an Australian sign, so it can be a bit hard for our international guests who are logging in, but okay. Maddie says the roundabout direction is incorrect. Let's give Maddie a prize for that. So, do we even have this little gap in roundabout signs in Australia? It's a good question. I wonder how many thousands and thousands of these you've driven past, and have you noticed a gap or not? Some of you are wondering now and pondering. Well, we do have a gap, but you put the gap in the other side here in order to remind people to drive the correct way around the roundabout. If this was in the US or in a country that drives on the right, then this would be the right configuration. Now, this is a very nuanced, specific thing, and I'll come back to this sign and talk to you about how we would think about this as a road safety auditor. Like, is this going to cause death and serious injury to our community? Probably not. Okay. But it's not right, and it's got some sort of implications. So let me come back to that. I'll come back to it in a bit. The road safety audit process, I said 10 steps. Let's go. Let's have a look at the 10 steps. And they're pretty consistent internationally, these steps. Somebody selects the audit team, and that will be the client. Officially, it's the end asset manager, and we'll call them the client. It gets a little complicated if you've got developer-funded works or you've got private road operators and the like. Essentially, though, whoever's going to be the end owner, manager of that bit of infrastructure goes and selects the audit team. They then hand over all the background information. It could be designs, it could be traffic studies, it could be any other information that could be useful for the audit team to be able to do their job. Then there's some sort of discussion around that information, clarification. Do we know what we're doing? Do we have all the info we need? We'll call it a commencement meeting. I mean, in practice, sometimes it's just a phone call and just a check-in. Certainly on big projects, you'd usually go in, sit down, roll out the plan, ask any questions. And then there's sort of looking at those documents and getting any final clarification. And then the audit team sort of takes all of that and off they go. Off they go and they do the road safety audit. And they get out there and they look at the site and they report it all up. And then they issue that report over to the client. And then there's any sort of completion meeting. But this is really to clarify the receiver of the report, if they've got any questions, if they don't understand aspects of it. And then the receiver of that report writes responses. You remember last session, we had the table and we said we leave that column in the blank. Well, that's where the receiver of the report then writes their information. And then they implement whatever change they've decided. It's their decision on what they're going to do. So I'll take you through those one at a time. Now, the selection of the audit team. Well, an audit team has to have a lead. We appoint somebody a lead of the audit team, and they should be a senior road safety auditor. There's different requirements for a senior road safety auditor in different jurisdictions around Australia, and even lead auditors. In general, it's across the world. It's somebody with a level of experience in auditing. A lot of jurisdictions do that. They've got 5 years experience in industry at a minimum, and they've done 5 audits, and that makes them a senior auditor. And then we can have road safety auditors along there. And then there is the option to have additional people, observers, trainees, specialists can be in there as well. They're people potentially like here would say a trainee. Well, potentially they haven't done the course yet, but they're wanting to get their head around the audit. They're not going to be an official auditor on this, but they might be recognized there. Observers could be the principal of the local school who comes out and gives their thoughts on it, a local police officer. It could be anybody. The bulk of road safety audits are simply done by a couple of auditors, say a lead auditor and a road safety auditor together. But it would be nice. It is nice if you can pull others in, but practical reality means that's challenging often. So technically, the client is responsible for appointing the team. And usually, though, that it's sort of a consultancy is given the task, or they say to an auditor, can you, a senior auditor they know, can you please do an audit? And they will then find another person to be involved in this. Okay, it's an audit team. We do talk about teams. And so team, and it's written into the Austroads guide, is more than one. We need to make sure everybody's independent. I think you've got that pretty well last time. You're all doing very well on your quizzes on that question. And it should be somebody senior who's leading the team. Ideally, in an ideal world, you'd have this very diverse audit team of different road safety experiences, professions, ages, considerations and empathy, and be different road users and males and females. And you have this really, diverse set of eyes on the project. But as I mentioned, a lot of the time, the practical realities is very hard to get that to actually happen. So then the background information is handed over, and there's some sort of potential commencement meeting where we further discuss that, and then we look at all the documentation, and then we get out and we do the road safety audit, and we inspect the site during the daytime and the nighttime. So why do we go out there at night? Okay, there's a number of reasons. One here is, quite obvious when you see it, is like, take the direction to North Croydon, very obvious during the day, not so obvious at night. So, okay, sign retroreflectivity might be one thing you'd pick up. But there are lots of other things that we might pick up at night. So sometimes we have headlight glare in specific alignments that are either existing or that a new road will be put on that alignment, and we can get more feel for that at night. Sometimes the street lighting will create visual deceit in the way it lines up. Sometimes there's actual activity in the area that you didn't expect. It could be like a nightclub area that you just didn't know was so lively at night without sort of being out there. Now, again, in an ideal world, we would look at this during summer, during winter, during when it's raining, when it's sunny, day, night. But, you won't be able to get out and look at all of these. So we say during the day and the night. And if there's a particular activity that you know of in the area, like a school or a footy stadium or something like that, if you can get there, school especially during drop-off or pickup time, to see how it operates then. The footy stadium, like, it's good to see it if it's, a home game and how it interacts like that. Sometimes you practically just can't do that. Back to our sign. So yes, that's right. It's in the wrong location, and it really, yes, in Australia, it would look like that. We do have those gaps. So in a road safety audit, if I identified that, how would I rate it? Well, I would risk rate it very, very low. I would probably even not give it a risk rating, and I would simply note it. And you can do that in an audit. You don't need to have a risk rating for everything, but you can put, to note, and say, this is wrong. The gap was in, sorry, it's right now, what we're seeing on screen. The one before is wrong. And we can, and then just tell them what to fix. They're going to fix it, right? Especially if it's a design, they'll fix it. Although, what sort of situations in the road environment do you think the risk elevates a bit for this issue? Any ideas on that? I'll give a prize out. So if we see a design of this wrong or existing roundabout sign like this, where do you think maybe the risk's a little bit higher? I still don't think it's high risk, but a little bit higher. Any idea? Okay, so we've seen some ideas on 2-lane roundabouts, where it could be confusing, and then we've seen airport. I like airport as examples. So we've got a username here, 935649. It's like maybe a prisoner's joined the course. But yeah, okay. So this is coming out of Hobart International Airport, and this is the first sign you see after you collect a rental car. And I just feel that I still don't think it's high risk, but I just feel that you're going to get people coming from other countries. Maybe they drive on the right and they're not used to roundabouts. And it kind of encourages a little bit of that wrong way driving. The point on it really, though, is to think about the context as you're making your risk rating. The audit report then is important, and we're going to give you a template road safety audit report, which you are more than welcome to rebrand and you put your own branding on, use the words. The key is industry consistency in road safety audit reporting. And we want to have in there some information about the project that's happening and the stage of audit, the information that was provided. Okay, this is quite important from protecting yourself perspective in the sense that if you do a road safety audit and you've got a design and you're looking at the design, you do your audit, you make all your recommendations and you identify lots of different things and you hand that over. And a few years down the track, there's an incident at that site and somebody's seriously injured and they're suing the road authority, and the road authority says, well, we had a road safety audit done, so the deficiency wasn't picked up, so we bring in the auditor into court with us, and they pull you in, and you look at the site and you're like, well, hang on a second, what I looked at as a plan and what they built were very different, so that wasn't even in the plan that I was looking at. And that's where, to keep everything nice and clear, you give details about the design you looked at, the date of that, the number of it, and some people even attach it as like an appendix. So it's all very clear. You list the audit team members and the dates that the audit were carried out and the site inspections. Some people like to put the weather conditions when they're out on site, others don't. That's not a requirement. You put your list of issues, problems that you've identified in the plan. Now, here's a bit of a table of contents of other things that would be in there. As I say, you're going to get a template audit report to work off, so you don't need to spend long on this. But let me just talk to you about a few things. We love photos of the site. That helps out. And they should be integrated into the findings if it's relevant. And there's a bit of information about the road safety audit process and procedure. And that's a good thing to do. And we always, just use the same words over and over and over. And feel free to use the words we're going to give you. But the reason that's important is that road safety audits, while they're very well known in industry, there are people who have never heard of them, don't know what it is, and they don't know why they're getting this and what to do with it. And so some information about the audit procedure and process and what it is helpful for some of those people. So we always put that into the audit report. So that report's handed over, and as I mentioned, a completion meeting really around ensuring that everybody's on the same page. Occasionally within that sort of completion meeting, there's heated discussions about, the risk rating or the finding. Is that something that should be reported or not? It can get a little bit tricky as an auditor to just hold your ground on what you believe are issues or not. Occasionally, I have, with my audit team, been in completion meetings, and they have provided information at that point that we hadn't got earlier on in the audit. So at that stage, then I am still willing to alter the audit report based on new information. So I then take that back and readjust it. So it's not like, you put it down and never talk to them again. I mean, you can adjust that as you see fit with more information. So then they are to write responses to each of the findings. They do not have to accept the finding. They don't have to do what you've said, but they need to just make comment on that. But they don't need to give it back to you as an auditor. Right. Once you've handed over that report and you're happy with it, and they're not giving you any more information, your job is done. All right. It is not your role to check that they've written responses or check that they've implemented what they said they would. That's on them. Okay. Once you've handed it over, your job is done. In practice, though, and what we really encourage is that they give you their responses, and that helps auditors to sort of see, how they're reacting to the findings and whether we've been able to reduce that risk. And then obviously they implement them. They change the design if necessary. They make changes to the road network to improve safety. So what happens to the audit report? Yeah, so hand it over to the project manager either during that conclusion meeting or via an email is much more common. It's good practice. Everybody keeps copies of this just for future reference if required. Responding in writing. And it's really important that each issue is responded to. It really has to be an integral part of any organization's process to get these reports and respond to them. Some things to remember: if you've received a road safety audit report, the responses you write in that column could become public. So just think about how you're wording things. It's good practice to give your responses to the audit team. You don't have to, though. Now, a common misunderstanding here, and I've already sort of mentioned this, is that, this report, everything must be done. No. It is, if you're the project manager, or it's your project, right? You decide what happens and what won't happen. This is a piece of advice that might help you make decisions, help you identify things. It's there to try to help you reduce the risk of your project. It's your decision. Now, if you are not going to accept something that an auditor has told you, you just need to use that column, that blank column, to justify, what you might do instead. Okay, well, first thing is you can say, we do not believe this is an issue. That's fine. That's legitimate. I would say, though, if you're going to say, we do not agree with this road safety audit team, that's an issue, try and justify that with some data, some evidence, some information, someone else's, report that says, it's not, or whatever it is. So that's if you're going to flat out disagree with a finding. If you're going to disagree with the risk rating, same thing. Have you got some data and evidence to support that? If you're going to say, okay, well, we agree that that's an issue, and their risk rating's fine. However, their recommendations we can't do because of cost or because of environmental constraints or whatever it is, for some reason you can't do it, right? Then you could say, but we're going to, put in place these measures to reduce risk instead. And that's okay. All right. So at least you're trying to do something on that. Where the legal system gets really narky is if, you've been told of an issue and, you just put the whole report in a drawer and it never gets thought about or action, or where you just say, no, can't afford it. Like, okay, we understand, and the legal system completely understands that, we're not all sitting on piles of money and able to do absolutely everything we ever wanted. But you have to have some consideration about managing risk and prioritizing things and maybe scheduling them for future works. Okay. Any questions on that coming in, Marissa, as I change over my slides, I think, to our next road user?
No questions that I can see at the moment. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll let Ken know, but nothing at the moment, Ken.
Okay.
Oh, we just had one come in as I said that. All the RSA documents are public, or does it depend?
It depends. Mostly they're not public. So, however, if somebody does a freedom of information request on a local government or a state government or the like, they will hand over the road safety audit report. They will redact the names on it, and they will check with you as an auditor, like that you don't have any particular commercial reasons why this couldn't go out. But plenty of audits that I've been part of the teams of have been released to legal teams and others. There are sometimes a local government would put it on their website as well, as especially if it's been a community like a project of community angst, and they want to show, hey, well, we got this independent road safety expert team, and they've looked at it, and here's their report, and we've actioned these parts of it or whatever it is. So you just need to be aware that it could. Most of the time, they're never made public, but that's a possibility.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay. So this is good. We're ticking along nicely here, and we traditionally in this session do finish a little bit early to give you time to finish off that assignment, which Marissa will at the end just take you into the learning management system and show you again where to do that and how to do it, because I know some of you are busy and you haven't managed to find that time to be able to have a think about that little assignment. So we will give you a little bit of the actual time to do it and your quiz and get you back on track, because we do have other assignments as part of this course and the big assignment at the end, and we want to make sure you're up to speed and ready to go when we give you a mock road safety audit to do. As I mentioned there, though, we want to and we need to, in order to keep this course compliant with its requirements, we need to talk about different road users, with pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, heavy vehicles, cars. We sort of talk about passenger vehicles throughout. And I'm going to start with pedestrians. Pedestrians, including those in wheelchairs, and it gets a bit blurred when we're talking about e-scooters and the like as to whether that's whether consider that a pedestrian or a cyclist or its own unique entity. Generally categorized within pedestrians in most in most ways of thinking about things, but it's certainly an emerging thing of consideration. So this little part where we're talking about pedestrians, and I will ask you some questions along the way, we want to identify requirements of pedestrians for safe travel, point you at some technical information regarding pedestrian infrastructure, identify common road safety audit issues for pedestrians, and basic terminology. I am happy to go off on some different tangents if you have specific questions around some of this stuff. I do a fair bit of work and run some training around pedestrian crossing, raised pedestrian crossings. And there's lots and lots of cool, exciting technical information around that. I'm happy to talk a little bit about that within this, because auditors should be aware of some of that, but I'm sure we won't have time to do a lot of it. I saw something just flash up on screen there, Marissa. I might, before I jump into the 4 groups, answer that.
Yeah, it's when you cannot meet the RSA recommendation, is that where a design exception report ties in?
Not necessarily. So a design exception report is needed where you're deviating from set design standards. And so you've gone outside of outside of extended design domain, or some jurisdictions, as soon as you're into extended design domain, you need a design exception report. But because road safety auditing is not about conformance with standards and guidelines necessarily, you may report on something that meets standards, right? So it won't have a design exception report requirement around it, right? It's just the auditor is concerned, or the audit team is concerned with this. So you will just be reporting back on that. The auditor might identify things that don't meet standards, and as a result of that, makes recommendations. But if you're not going to be able to get things within that standards envelope, in that case, then you probably need a design exception report. But the two are sort of, they're separate entities. Design exception reports are different to road safety audit reports, and the linking could happen, but it doesn't need to happen. Thank you. Good question, though. Okay. Oh, well, let's give out some prizes. There are 4 groups of pedestrians at greatest risk. So categories of pedestrians at greatest risk. Let's see. Type them in. What do you think? Any of the 4, and I'll give you a prize. Okay. Oh, Marissa, you'll have your work cut out for you here.
Gonna have to keep up.
Good ones. I think we've got 3 of the 4. Yeah, we've got 3 of the 4, and now we got 4 of the 4.
Got them all.
Okay, so what you're looking for, Marissa, is elderly, young, disabled, or intoxicated.
Okay, leave it with me.
Yep. Okay. Now, let me just talk briefly about why these different road user groups are at higher risk. The elderly are at higher risk. Oh, sorry. The elderly are at higher risk because of their cognitive processing ability is one. The ability to move quickly across roads and the like is another. And thirdly, their frailty, when struck, it's likely to be quite serious, even at low speed. So that combination makes them high risk pedestrian group. Young are about, again, cognitive processing ability, ability to judge gaps, make decisions, and all of that. Their dartiness, for lack of a better term, the fact that they pop out and they run around and they chase balls and they chase things and they pop out. their size, so they're hidden behind things like parked cars and smaller bins and these sorts of things. Interestingly, their ability to withstand physical force from a vehicle is actually quite high. The young, if you do like crash biomechanics in-depth work, you'll discover that the young people actually can withstand significant force. Of course, there's limitations on that. And one of the limitations is around vehicle strike, and where we see the positioning of smaller humans being struck by vehicles means that it's more vulnerable parts of the body struck. So disabled from a vehicle kilometers traveled style perspective, or vehicle, or person walked or wheeled perspective, they're not super high in terms of representation in death and serious injury. However, what we do know is that individual person in a wheelchair or with vision impairment can be placed into points of very high risk due to the infrastructure that we design and create and build out there. So it's something that we need to certainly consider. And intoxicated. Now, this group is far and away the biggest pool of death and serious injury for pedestrians, intoxicated pedestrians. Huge overrepresentation in death and serious injury. Now, you might think to yourself, well, what can we do about that? Well, the thing is, a lot of times we can have that thinking, and we know areas where there's going to be likely more intoxicated pedestrians, and we can put in place physical infrastructure alterations to lessen the risk. So I'll talk about a few of those as we go. The three basic strategies for pedestrian safety: segregation, separation, or integration. So there, just three ways of thinking about this. So segregation being areas where you have only pedestrians or only vehicles. Segregation is that, separation is that separation in time or space, and integration being we'll all use the same space and share that bit of road. So segregation, motorways, freeways, obvious example of where this is being attempted, where we don't have vulnerable road users in that mix. Interestingly, though, if you do crash analysis on motorways, you do discover a surprising amount of death and serious injury to pedestrians. And the bulk of them, from my analysis of a few of these around the world, is it's people getting out of taxis late at night, getting out of broken down cars. So it's sort of that exit of a vehicle and then wandering or throwing up or whatever they're doing, often late at night, and we see incidents there. There we go. Massive bit of roadway, isn't it? That's actually in Canada. That's the 401. Anyway. Okay. The other way around is obviously areas where there are no vehicles, pedestrian malls, and the like. So we're segregating there. Separation is talking about, separation in time is saying that, well, a part of the road will be used at one point in time by pedestrians, at another point in time by vehicles. Obvious examples, school crossings, same thing. It's trying to separate it by time. And we have all sorts of different arrangements of this, and some interesting ways that we think about the safety of it. Anybody know? I'll give a prize out for this one. What is the official term for a signalized intersection or an intersection where pedestrians can cross all these different ways. What's the official term for it? Okay. Scramble is not the term. Okay, scramble crossing is the term that is used very much a lot, and I've got to give a prize for somebody saying scramble, because that's what Austroads will call it. It has another term. There we go. Barn stance. Well done. Prizes there. We're giving one for scramble and one for barn stance. Yeah, I don't know why it's got a barn stance. I assume Mr. or Mrs. Barnes came up with the idea, and that's what we've run with. But somebody also said box treatment. This is that one's actually just been a yellow box marked. We call that a yellow box marking. So I'll give a prize for that as well. I'm going prize crazy today, Marissa. Okay.
I'm running out, Ken.
I know there's a whole storage room full of them. Okay. Now, this sort of stuff might be things that we would recommend potentially if we feel that is, and they will do their traffic modeling to determine whether or not that's something feasible if you think it would improve safety. Separation in space is about providing those refuge islands, footpaths, sidewalks, and so we've sort of got that separation in space. At what point do we say it's segregation? Well, at some point you would say that. But as a road safety auditor, one of the interesting things to think about is, have we got enough space to store? Okay, if we're providing a refuge island or something like this, is there enough space to store? Now, you can go to your different standards. So this one's from 1742. I'm like, it's a little old, though. I better change this slide. I'm still using 1990. Okay. 1742 will give you that if you're in Australia. Okay. So you could use that. But the easy rule of thumb for an auditor, and better than actually knowing where the standard is and what should specifically be done, is thinking about, okay, could, say, a father or mother pushing a pram fit in there, or would they have to decide if their kid or themselves stands in live traffic? Or could somebody on a bike store in there? Or if you're standing out there and you're watching and there's lots of pedestrian crossing, is there enough space there for multiple pedestrians to be in there? It doesn't matter whether it meets the standard or not, right? If you're concerned by it, you report it. The standards might help you in terms of gauging some of this if you don't have that full clarity on it. We also want to think about, mobility scooters. Can they store in there? So you've got some different road users to be thinking about. Now, pedestrian overpasses and underpasses are, considered part of that separation suite of treatments. But our job as road safety auditors is to think about, like, how are people going to actually use this? Right? And we really do know when a lot of pedestrian overpasses are put in and they're not really used. Well, they're used by some people, but we still have a lot of people who just walk straight across the road. So our job as auditors, and especially in design stage of something expensive being built like this, is to really say and think about, well, how can we make sure people use this or encourage people to use this? Or can we do things to the road itself, because we're still going to have pedestrians crossing at grade? We are the voice of sort of reality as auditors often. Designers can get caught up in thinking that everybody will do exactly what their intention of this design is, and go up this big long ramp that goes up and back and over there and all the way down there just to get across the road. Well, I know a lot of them are just going to go straight across the road. We'll talk about pedestrian fencing in a minute, because I said that was an option put forward, and it could be an option, but I'll have a chat a little bit about that in a minute. Integration is talking about creating those environments where pedestrians and vehicles share the same space. And in Australia and New Zealand, we have shared zones, and that's the regulatory sign on a shared zone. Now, a shared zone's an area where pedestrians have priority through the entire area that is marked like this as a shared zone. So here's an example of a shared zone. And you can see the signs there. They've put this supplementary giveaway to pedestrians. Technically, they don't need that because that's in the road rules, and everybody with a license in Australia should know what the regulatory requirements of that are, except for they've probably rightly worked out that not too many people do know that, even though they should. But the design guidance around a shared zone talks about making it not look like a road. That's good. I like that as design guidance. And you think about that when you're an auditor, if you're asked to audit a shared zone. Is it going to be clear that they're entering a very different environment here where pedestrians have priority throughout the length of this? And this one is an interesting one because it's got some good points and it's got some things I think they could have improved on. The good points I like is that it contrasts the rest of the pavement. So we've got a different look. They've got rid of the curbing, so it's flat and it's up there. But then they've gone and line marked it like a road and they made it straight like a road. When you ever drive a really good shared zone, you'll get into the shared zone, you'll drive along, and then you'll go, am I actually allowed to be driving here? Like, it feels so not like a road. That is a good shared zone. And where we've seen problems in terms of crashes where people have been injured, it has been in this absolute sort of, they've chucked the sign up and it's been a half measure in terms of actually changing the physical environment and just hoping people know what the sign is and will follow it. Okay. So let's really hone in on a few things for us to look at as auditors and when we're thinking about pedestrians. So we're switching that pedestrian light on in our mind. Although I think, Marissa, before I jump and dive headfirst into that, I'm going to give people a stretch break. Is that all right? Are we like close to halfway?
Yeah, absolutely. It's 2:54. Do you want to reconvene in about 5 minutes?
Yeah, let's do top of the hour.
Sure.
So,
yep, 3 o'clock.
Back at 3 o'clock, or
all right, see you then.
Whatever your time zone is. 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Bye.
Okay, time to get back into it. And I was just about to launch into what to look for when road safety auditing for pedestrians. So I'll give you a few examples and hopefully it'll spark a few bits of thinking as you go out and do audits. So, sight lines to pedestrians crossing. Now, lots to talk about here. So this is a slip lane. Slip lanes are quite a hot topic of discussion amongst the road safety auditing and road safety engineering and road design community at the moment, actually. So as a vehicle approaches this crossing, where might they be looking? Well, they'll be looking out this way. I won't give out any prizes for that. Why are they going to be looking out that way? Because they want to know that they can put the foot down and go because it's a slip lane. So that then creates this interesting scenario of a driver not looking where they are going at a point where we've got a pedestrian crossing. So that's one interesting aspect of it. Second one here we're seeing is the landscaping. And as an auditor, you at the detailed design stage, you'd look at landscaping plans, right? You would try to understand if this is going to grow to a sightline impediment or there could be other issues. It'd factor in. Sometimes we see other things blocking sight lines. And to work out sort of sightline requirements of pedestrian crossings, yeah, there's a little bit to it, but essentially you do stopping sight distance calculations, and you want to do approach sight distance calculations to the crossing and the like. So as an auditor, we would, are we going to do all of those calculations again? Probably not. But are we going to get out there and go, oh, okay, that doesn't look great? Then we might do some of those calculations. If you're looking at a design and you've got concerns, then you do the calculations again and have a check of that. Or if you just feel it doesn't look safe, then you can report on it. So ensuring those sight lines is important. For these slip lanes, I mean, everybody at least agrees that a raised crossing at this location is going to be safer. So there's a recommendation for you straight away. The debate is around whether or not removal of the slip lane is a better or a worse outcome, or signalising it compared to a pedestrian crossing like this, or nothing at all. Another one is the swept path of larger vehicles over areas where pedestrians are waiting. So this, appears to be okay. The bus is sweeping around. It's not tracking over the pedestrian area. But tragically, we've seen a number of incidents around Australia where pedestrians have been killed by larger vehicles tracking over the area where they've been doing what we all do, is standing, waiting for the lights, looking at their phone, because that's a spot where they were just, waiting. Now, one of those was an intersection not built that long ago in the scheme of things. So was the consideration of the correct design vehicle or checking vehicle, unsure on that. And Jamie Robinson will be talking to you a bit more about what our role is with swept path diagrams as road safety auditors. We certainly don't run the swept paths ourselves, but we would be looking at swept path diagrams and sort of interrogating whether they are presenting any particular issues, whether the correct design vehicle and checking vehicle is chosen. But Jamie will talk to you more about this. We do need to think about that vehicle tracking over pedestrian areas. Sometimes as an auditor, we need to think about things that aren't there, as opposed to, what we can see or what we can see in the design. And you may see designs of road upgrades and, it's not mentioning the addition of any pedestrian footpaths or sidewalk facilities or the like. And, is this the time where they should be adding this? If we have areas like this which don't have sidewalks, well, pedestrians will walk on the road shoulder or on the road when it's muddy, if they're pushing a trolley or the like, or they're in a mobility scooter. So the lack of facilities can be something you bring up in an audit report. And here's another example of those sort of lack of facilities. Ooh, has our roundabout sign got a gap? Yes, it does. And it's in the right spot. But this pedestrian, okay, they're walking along happily when it's summer or there's no. But if that's muddy, it's wet, okay, they're going to be on the road and then over a little crest here. And we've got a pretty nasty scenario there where vehicles approaching but a vulnerable road user on the road, with a bit of a crest. So then we have this term that auditors use a lot, and others use it. It's pedestrian desire line. Pedestrian desire line. That is a line from where pedestrians are and where they want to be, and it is a straight line. And pedestrians do not like to deviate off their desire line. And here you can see a pedestrian, their desire line, goes from here over here to the station. And she's just walking her desire line. Now, somebody's put up some pedestrian fencing to try and stop this. But she will walk on the road down to the end of the fencing, and then because that's her desire line, it's closer to her desire line. So we need to understand and acknowledge this as our auditing task, that pedestrians will want to walk on their desire line and they will make it happen. Now, pedestrian fencing then can cause safety issues. If we put up pedestrian fencing in the wrong spots, we will actually trap pedestrians on the roadway. Okay, and they will walk on the roadway until they get to their gap in the fencing. So, and that's a really interesting thing as an auditor to try to understand from a design, for example. Okay, they're putting fencing there, but I reckon pedestrians will be coming from the station here and they're all wanting to get that way and they're going to walk here. Some of them are just going to walk along the road here until they get to this gap. That's the kind of thinking we've got to be doing. So personally, I'm not a fan of pedestrian fencing on much of the road network. Due to, yes, this creation of danger. I also think that, corralling pedestrians like sheep through an area is just downgrades the livability of a city. Now, that admittedly is not a road safety audit consideration and factor. So I don't, in my audits, I'm all about safety. Okay, if they want to make the city horrible to walk around, but everybody's safe, then the audit report won't be mentioning anything. But there are these safety concerns I've got in these situations. Where I really like pedestrian fencing is not so much for the corralling, although bits of it for the corralling can work quite well. But I really like it outside drinking establishments like pubs and bars. The reason is as a containment device. I've done 2 coronial investigations. So fatal crashes have occurred, and we've done investigations and reporting on this outside drinking establishments with people who have, one of them was some people fighting and they came out of the establishment straight onto the road, both killed by a passing vehicle. And one very hard to establish exactly what happened, but a gentleman has fallen out from there onto the road. Like the fencing there is not like to corral them to a particular crossing point. It's just to contain that, and that's the same sort of reasoning you do it outside schools as well. And kids running after balls or just playing or whatever it is, and they sort of out the gate, and we use it as almost a containment device in that sense. So that's good. Just be aware though, pedestrian desire line. I think somebody was explaining pedestrian desire line using this little meme. Are we going to call it? I'll call it a meme. And I thought that's pretty good. Yep. User experience and some more pedestrian desire lines where you can see them. All right. Now, at a bigger picture level, and we see this more in developing countries than we do in developed countries, although our role as auditors is to, look at this always, is if we put a motorway or a major road through areas, where people need to get from one side to the other, they're going to get from one side to the other. Okay, we need to ensure at those early stages we're creating pedestrian facilities, overpasses, underpasses, and that they're attractive and that they're easy to use. Some people often say to me, well, okay, underpasses, from a personal safety perspective, that's a danger. Should that be reported in the audit report? And I'm like, it's a tough one. We don't report on personal safety issues, as in, am I going to be mugged in this area? But if it discourages people from using the facility and that they will take the road, then we sort of report on it. Hope that clarification makes sense. Happy to elaborate on that if people are a little bit confused. But we do see this in it's very frustrating where we'll have like a major new World Bank funded or or one country's funding a developing country to build massive new roadways through their country but then they'll go straight through a township where they separate the township and it's high-speed traffic, but they're not providing these pedestrian facilities. And we just see skyrocketing death and serious injury for pedestrians through these areas as they continue to cross through the highway, and also things like trade on the highway and all sorts of other challenges. Okay, another incident that we can learn from as auditors, and hopefully we can not have these situations in the future. So this is what a driver is seeing. And the next photo is taken just in here, just behind that little hazard board. Okay, so this is what the driver's seeing. And then this is what the pedestrian is seeing. And the incident that occurred, well, actually, I'll ask you a question. Who has priority here? Do the pedestrians have priority, or does the driver have priority? Yeah, the car. So Mick is on a prize there. The vehicle has priority because it is not marked as a pedestrian crossing. It doesn't have that regulatory status. So the driver does. But it didn't take long standing there with my colleague as we were doing this investigation of an incident. So not an audit, but we're investigating the incident, to see these two chatting away, walk straight out, and the car slows down and stops, which was good. Except for the fact that at one point, I believe this has happened, or it did happen, where a person has walked out and the vehicle didn't slow down and stop. And that's the obvious concern there. So what it is confusion of priority. And we can design confusion of priority in sometimes. And our job as auditors is to try and remove confusion of priority. Make it very clear if it's pedestrian priority, that it's pedestrian priority. Make it very clear that if it's vehicle priority, it is vehicle priority. Putting up a sign here, which I see a lot of, that says, pedestrians give way to cars. Well, that's pretty much an indication you've stuffed up your infrastructure. All right? It's not clear, and the sign isn't going to make it clearer. Right? That needs some rework. I'll jump past this one. I'll go to this one. So this was an interesting one in terms of the designer went with the approach to say, well, we use yellow markings for the piano key markings instead of white so that people won't be confused as to priority, because white they might be confused. And again, the auditor is able to say, well, I think you're asking a lot of the public to know the difference between a white line marking and a yellow line marking from a regulatory sense. And this kind of looks like a pedestrian crossing to somebody walking up to it. And, the choices could be to make it a formalized pedestrian crossing, or maybe alter it in a way that makes it still a raised threshold treatment, which is what it is. And they're very good because they do a wonderful job. But this is clearer. It's continuing road color. It's got a center line, marking. This could be pushed back a little bit even, but that's going to be clearer that that's a road and we're going to cross it. Or you just make it a pedestrian crossing. And here's one from Launceston Airport. I could do a whole road safety audit course based on pictures from airports. I think because of their federal jurisdiction, they just abandon all good practices associated with roads in and out. But yeah, really unclear. You get off the plane and you're sort of going out to somebody is waiting for you or the like, and at this point, it's actually technically vehicle priority through there. It's really unclear. The biggest saving grace here is that it's a raised, so that'll slow things down, but it's not clear at all. And we see this emergence of people saying, oh, well, this is where we want people to cross, so we'll highlight it and we'll make it, there's maybe vehicles will slow down because of some courtesy, and they're actually called courtesy crossings in some countries. Yeah, it is just breeds a confusion of priority, which is not required. Either make it dedicated pedestrian priority or keep it at road, color, line mark it with the center line through it, make it very clear that a pedestrian needs to look for vehicles. Either way. And in Australia or Victoria, we're going to be needing the pedestrian walking legs to give it legal priority, and the markings on the road. This one doesn't have the markings on the road. It should have markings on the road. But that's the legal status of it, should have all of this marking. And that's then nice and clear for everybody. That's pedestrian priority. Here's just some incorrect signage. I'm not understanding what the signage is. And these are things auditors can pick up. They're trying to use like warning signs at pedestrian crossings for directional sort of signage for pedestrians to walk in these areas. Just incorrect signage. Is that a big road safety issue? No. Does it annoy me? Yes. Would I put it in an audit report? Probably as just a note somewhere. Hey, this is wrong, because I can't really connect that to somebody being killed or seriously injured in the future. This one, on the other hand, potentially. They've put the regulatory leg signs facing the pedestrians. And obviously they thought, well, we need to tell the pedestrians where they should cross. But of course, that's for drivers. Now, you sort of question the installers of the sign as to what on earth they're doing. But this stuff does occasionally slip through the net. So auditors can, in those post-opening audits or existing conditions, pick up some stuff like this, which is we really want to report on. All right, little one for you. Here's a pedestrian crossing. It's okay. Don't worry about all these sort of line marking on the road. They're trying to make their street more active and the like. But let's forget about that for now. Let's concentrate on the crossing. Now, if you were to be getting this as a design, so they've designed the curb outstands, the curb build outs, and the landscaping around there, and the crossing and the location of signage and everything like that. You get given it as a design. Okay, there's some tweaks that could be made to this design to make it a bit safer. All right. Now, pop into the chat some ideas on how you think this could be tweaked to make it a bit safer if you were there at design stage. Okay, got some good ideas coming in. All right. Well, we're thinking nicely now. We're really all thinking like road safety auditors. So we're thinking, and I've seen a few people there saying, well, hang on, a vehicle coming up this way, well, their sight lines are blocked a little bit by probably this vehicle, by the vegetation, by the bin. Okay, what if we've got a smaller pedestrian coming out here? They're hidden. Okay, could all of this go on this side? That's a pretty good question. So somebody, maybe Marissa can find somebody who hasn't got a prize today yet, who said, movement of the bins and the vegetation and the like. I think that's a really good one. I saw some people saying raise it. Raising it's always a good option to reduce the risk. Some people talking about the signage. Now we're talking about positioning of the signage. Is it clearer? We've got vegetation blocking signs. So you're able to think about a few things. Some of those are very minor tweaks and wouldn't add cost to it if you got it at a design stage, and we'd be able to see some pretty good benefits. Now, this one may never cause a crash in its whole existence. But if we're constantly ensuring that all the pedestrian crossings that go out there have these good sight lines, clear sight lines, and then overall we're going to see benefits and savings in death and serious injury. Okay, another fatality investigation, coronial investigation report we're doing. So again, we're learning from these incidents to try to not repeat those sort of principles. This is where a pedestrian stepped out and was struck by a vehicle and killed the vehicle coming through this way. So this is what the pedestrian sort of was seeing. And I'll show you back up here. This is what the vehicle sort of came in. So that picture before was taken from about there. They were going this way. I'll go back a bit and you see this is a high-speed road. Okay, no, it's a service road with a shallow angle slip entry up to that point. So when you're out there, it's really hard to do this with photos and the like, but when we've got the green man there, we've got this with its audio ticking as it goes, and you're back here, it just draws you to want to go. And pedestrians have priority all of this at that point in time, but not this section. And so as you're there, it almost draws you to take that step out. And we don't have the CCTV footage, but our analysis of it was there's likely that pedestrian just took that step out with all of that going on and was struck and killed. So, that kind of stuff, it would be great if we were able to have got in there at the original design of this intersection and done something to continue this through, to create a raised crossing treatment here, perhaps, to even do things like sorry, I'm jumping around here, to put treatments here to slow vehicles as they enter this area. These are all options and things that would have been nice to have identified that at the design stage, and that's what auditors are really trying to do. So this one, unfortunately, it had to be a reactive treatment, so somebody was killed and then a raised crossing went in at that location. It would be lovely to be doing these things proactively, though. So a common misconception about road safety audits is that they undertake a Disability Discrimination Act audit at the same time. So for those not from Australia, that's a check that the infrastructure can be used by all road users, people in wheelchairs, vision impaired. It's things like tactile ground surface indicators, like you can see on the photo there, but also grades of different ramps and handrail heights and all of those sorts of things. But that's not the job of a road safety auditor to check conformance with the Disability Discrimination Act in Australia. Like, what we're there to do is check if there's things we believe will cause death or serious injury. Now, if you identify things like missing tactile ground surface indicators or misaligned ones, you may decide to put that into your report if you believe that there is a direct link to crashes that could happen. Personally, almost all of those tactile ground surface indicator findings that I've had in a road safety audit have only just been to note. I can't make a link to risk rating them high enough to actually even sit as medium risks or anything like that. Okay, but I think it's important. I've identified it. There is some chance, but I really, I know that just the numbers of crashes we see from misaligned or non-existent tactile ground surface indicators across all of Australia is very, very, very tiny over many decades. So to say that this is a high risk is just not true, right? However, it's important we can note it, and it will be fixed. They're easy to fix, and we'll get it right. So I just note them in my audit. Jump past that. Other little things that I note, again, Like the tactile ground surface indicators are meant to contrast in color the pavement. So that one looks good. It contrasts well. That one I was showing before, yeah, it's probably not contrasting in color enough. But, you know, again, are they going to be sources of death and serious injury? Very, very unlikely, but could be done better. Right, I'm going to give you a little task and then we're wrapping up and I'm going to give you some time back to finish everything off. Get yourself up to speed. So this is an existing intersection and there's 6 crashes that have occurred at one spot and they're exactly the same crash type, all involving pedestrians and I think 5 serious injuries and 1 other more minor injury. And I'm going to give you some options on the location of this and the crash type. And then I'm going to get you to, I think, Mr. we might have a vote for this one, a poll. If we don't, we'll just type it into the...
Yeah, we do. I'm just bringing that up now, actually.
Okay, well, don't make it live yet.
Okay.
Because I'm going to explain this.
Okay.
And, okay, so the... options okay, people are already wanting to write it in. Maybe put the poll up because they're going.
Okay, let's launch the poll for the eager beavers. All right.
Okay. You can move the poll around, just grab it and grab it as I talk to this. So each one of these is a little crash diagram. And I want you to say 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 as the solid line is the vehicle, the dotted line is the pedestrian. That's a fairly, that's pretty international actually in crash diagramming, that you'd use a dotted line for a pedestrian and a solid line for a vehicle. So you can see 1 there is a vehicle turns into the service road, pedestrians crossing gets struck. 2 is vehicle turning left out of the slip lane, a pedestrian crossing struck. 3 is from the island across the slip lane, being struck by a vehicle. 4 is the same as 3, except for on that different side. And 5 is a vehicle turning in and pedestrian walking along the footpath being struck. So we're talking about 6 crashes of the same type at that location. And people are putting their ideas in. Perhaps some people were swayed by the chat, maybe already, who knows?
Location 1, getting that a little bit more.
Okay, if the poll hasn't popped up, feel free to type in the chat, see how you go. We'll give it another 20 seconds, 10 seconds.
All right, I might end that poll.
All right.
There, the results.
Yeah, let's have a look at the results. Ooh. And so most people are going for location 1. I think I might have been swayed by some people in the chat there. We've got 4 people for 2, 5 people for location 5. Okay, let's get rid of the poll. Back to me, and the answer is 2. So 4 of you are correct there. Now, okay, admittedly, I put in the other ones because they all hold some level of pedestrian risk. And I certainly would be taking a longer look at them in a road safety audit. I can see why 1 was popular because that's weird. It's a weird setup that you could possibly access that service road from that location. It's an odd configuration. But 2 is particularly risky because, again, we talk about the driver looking out this way, right? And then they're going to turn and then they're on the crossing. And this is odd. This is not the way it's usually done. Okay, you can see here the crossing goes into the island and you get the pedestrian crossing like that. So we've removed that whole thing, we still have the concern of the pedestrian, the pedestrian is going to have to cross there. But this is even worse when it's sitting around at this point. And if you go out on the site and you didn't have enough time to do anything here, you were sort of quickly having a look and a guess, the phasing of this means that just at the point where the vehicles are stopping to give the gap for a vehicle to turn in is the time that the pedestrian phasing goes. So we're actually kind of creating this nasty little mix. So as a road safety auditor, we want to try and pick these up before the crashes happen, when they're designing this intersection. And you might get a bit concerned by that and think, oh, geez, am I going to actually pick that up? It's concerning. Well, first of all, you get to spend a good bit of time looking and thinking about this. Second of all, you really can just systematically work this through. You can say, okay, I'm a driver. I'm coming up here. I want to do a right turn. Is it obvious where I go? Is it clear? Where do I get into? Is there enough storage? Have I got see-through? Okay, I'm going to turn. Okay, what if I run off the road there? What's going to happen there? Is this driver going to come in? You really work through, and then you go, okay, I'm going to go left now. Okay, oh, do I go in left here? Do I go here? Okay, that's an interesting spot. I'd flag that. Flag there. We'll think about that. Then I'm going to go up this one. I turn, and why am I turning right onto a pedestrian crossing? You flag that. You do that then for cyclists, for pedestrians, all these different movements, and you work through it over time. Again, change now. That's how it should have looked from the start. And you can see there the crossing going into the island and then out as it should. I mentioned get out there when there are different times of activity. If you know there's going to be lots of pedestrians at certain times, try and have a look at it, how it operates at that time. In terms of like making recommendations, lots of things we can recommend and a few pedestrian specific facilities. We've got puffin crossings. So it's a pedestrian user-friendly intelligent crossing. Somebody at some point went on a bird theme and everybody stuck to it in pedestrian crossing facilities. So puffin. So these are essentially these little devices which, like when you walk up to a house at night and the lights automatically come on. Well, this is the same technology. It just keeps the lights red for vehicles if there's movement on the crossing. And you can retrofit those to different pedestrian crossings. So you might recommend that if you're seeing and you've got concerns with long crossing distances and older people crossing or the like that may be a little bit slower. Toucan cross. This is very Australian. Oh no, the UK does this as well. That a pedestrian and cyclist, so it's like a sharing the road crossing, and you put two symbols up. Toucan cross. I'm not making this up. That's its actual term. We've got pelican crossings, which are crossings which the driver will see green and then orange and red, and then the pedestrians cross. But then it goes to a flashing amber for a while, just to let any straggling pedestrian cross. So they're pelican crossings. There's a sign that was on like World's 100 Funniest Road Signs. Makes complete sense to me. Humped pelican crossing. Pegasus crossing, which is again a nuance that a horse is a vehicle, so you've got a sign that it can go, and plus the rider is up at that height. So yeah, that's why I just chuck that one in for a bit of fun for you, really. And because I can tell you some exciting facts about horses and riding in Australia. If you ride a horse when you're intoxicated, it is drink driving. And although if you ride an intoxicated horse, you're okay. Marissa's heard that one many times. So She's groaning now, even though she's
I'm,
on mute.
I'm still laughing. I'm still laughing.
Okay, it's probably means it's time to start winding it up. One thing I haven't mentioned to you, though, is that in the Austra's Guide to Road Safety Part 6, Road Safety Audit, at the back, we have these things called prompt lists. Okay, they're just lists of a whole lot of questions that should prompt your thinking as a road safety auditor. They are not a checklist. By following every one of these, you're not covering off everything. You've got to logically look at it. A lot of these won't be relevant. But there is one, H6, that's walking and cycling. So you get lots of questions that ask you these things. That's going to help you especially as a new auditor, that you're getting lots of questions in there that prompt you thinking. You go, oh, okay, I didn't think about lighting. I wonder, yeah, okay, or I didn't think about pedestrian desire line or these sorts of things. So we'll we've got a copy of Part 6 in there. It's free, like all Austroads documents are free. You just need your user login, but provide you with that. You can have a look through that when you're doing your road safety auditing. I don't think we've got a quiz at the end of this one. I think we took that out to give time to people to do their assignment, unless I'm wrong.
Would that be on the polls?
I think it would have been a poll if we...
Let me have a look. It's the 3 infrastructure strategy question. Is that the one?
Oh, okay. Pop it up. Let's see what it
Pop
is.
that one up. Let's see what we got. Like Christmas. Okay, can we see that?
Yeah. Which of these is not one of the 3 infrastructure strategies for pedestrian safety? Well, we did 4 infrastructure strategies, but anyway, so my question needs updating. Maybe we just...
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And it's got a weird... Okay. Anyway, give it another 5 seconds and then let's jump into the learning management system, I think, Marissa, and just show everybody what they are going to do.
Sure. We'll get that done. Okay.
Let's end the poll because I think everybody's onto it. Well, actually, no. Yeah, so prevention is not one of the infrastructure strategies. Segregation, separation, integration are the 3. Actually, no, that is correct. So,
okay. The right screen showing this time?
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Let's so everybody should be doing their assignment, and if not, you're going to have good 15 minutes to really get into it. But
yes, we've already received some bunch of assignments already, so thank you very much for everyone for uploading them. The due date is tomorrow, close of business, so you've still got some time there. And okay, today's session, module 2, as module 1 and like the rest of the modules, we do have the slides up there for you to refer to. Did miss anything by any chance if you wanted to refer back? So we've got the slides part 1 and 2 there for you to have a look at. We have a pedestrian audit advice document there that you can also refer to, and my screen is not letting me. Oh, here we go. There we go. I'll just scroll in there. So you're welcome to pop in and have a read of that one. Your only task for today will be a quiz. So again, just under module 2 tasks. Our quiz for today, if you just click into it and the attempt quiz now button, it is only 10 questions. It shouldn't take you more than about 10 minutes or so. And it is probably just based on the content that Ken's talked about with you today. So I believe there will be a Wally question. So hopefully you kept an eye out for your Wallies today.
Hopefully not 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah. It's being generous. Oh no, sorry, I wasn't being generous, but the opposite. Yeah, but that's the only task for today. So please get your assignment in, your module 1 assignment, and Ken will have a chat about them to you guys next week.
Yep, the recording will go in there in 24 hours or so, and yeah, use this time to knock off that other assignment. It shouldn't take you long either. You've got time now. I would say you can do it all here. Do the quiz, do the assignment, and you're on track.
Get it done. Enjoy the afternoon.
That's it. Thanks, Marissa. And
Right.
we'll see everybody
Thanks,
a little
Tim.
bit early before next session.
Yes.
Give you a chance
More
to win
trivia,
prize.
more prizes.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.